Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending this Let's Talk Small Businesses session. My name is Peter Ohm. I'm the Chief Planner for the City of Edmonton, and I'm also the Branch Manager of the City Planning Branch. And it's my pleasure to have hosted most of the events in this Let's Talk speaker series. Before I go further, because I often forget to do this, I would like to thank the people that helped put on the event for tonight. And so that's a big thank you to Barbara Selleck, Braden Reed, both of the Economic and Environmental Sustainability Branch. Don't like competition, but that sounds serious. Thank you, Jeff. And then also Marco Melfi and Elizabeth Halpern from my branch, the City Planning Branch. They worked very hard to put on the event, as they have for 8 or 9 of these past events. We've always held them here in the City Hall room, and I think tonight is really no exception. We've got a good turnout as we've had in the past, so again, thank you for coming. To start our evening, it is a bit of our recent transition or tradition. The City of Edmonton acknowledges the traditional land upon which we're gathered today as Treaty 6 territory. So I'd like to thank the diverse Indigenous peoples whose ancestors' footsteps have marked this territory for centuries, such as the Cree, the Dene, the Saulteaux, the Nakota Sioux, and the Blackfoot's people. We also acknowledge that this is the homeland and the home of the largest concentration of Inuits south of the 60th parallel. It's a welcoming place for people all around the globe who would like to share Edmonton as a home. As I mentioned before, this is one of a series of events we've had in our speaker series. It's in fact the 9th event. And each Let's Talk event has really highlighted a different city administration project that we're working on to make our city better. I was just talking to Paul Ross, and he asked how many more of these we got in the hopper, and I said, we've got lots. We have endless subjects upon which we're working in terms of policy development and other significant initiatives. But past topics have included Let's Talk Food, Let's Talk Heritage, Health, Infill, Parks, Design, Growth, and Transit. As we seek to create great places through the integration of land use, transportation planning, urban design, and economic development, vibrant retail streets are an outcome that really contribute to the city's overall economic prosperity. In fact, supporting prosperity is one of the strategic goals outlined in The Way We Grow, which is the City of Edmonton's municipal development plan. Hosting this event really is an opportunity to focus on small businesses and our overall business community as an important way to achieving that goal. So tonight what we'll hear about is about how important small businesses are for our economy, but also around that vibrancy that they create and foster along our main streets, many of which are occupied by business improvement areas, etc., and then also in our neighborhoods. So with that, we have a special guest who's graciously decided to stay a little bit longer at City Hall for us tonight, and that is Scott McKeen, City Councillor for Ward 6, which his ward is all around us, so this is a special place for him. And if he would come up and say a few words.
Thanks, Peter. Really good to see this turnout tonight. I apologize for my attire. I'd actually gone home. I was dressed fancy today. I've gone home and I wasn't sure I was coming back. Then I thought, no, I really want to learn more about this area. So I came back. I want to tell a quick story. Some of you are old enough to remember that I used to write for the Edmonton Journal. I wrote a column. And one of the columns I wrote for the Journal was about living on 104th Street downtown, and I wrote it soon after we moved there. And I just, the headline or the premise was that I'd rediscovered the small town Main Street in downtown Edmonton. And what I meant by that was it would take me 10, 20 minutes to leave our place on 102nd Avenue and reach Jasper Avenue, because I got to know everybody. And it was remarkable to me that I was having that community experience, which had been absent in my life for a lot of years, in the heart of the downtown. So how did that happen? I think a lot of it was due to the small independent businesses along 104th Street And as I got to know the operators of those businesses, the Blue Plate Diner, there was Reza, the barber in there. My family went to the barber, I didn't need to. But he provided a valuable service to others. I got to know him, and I'd stop and I'd chat with him, and then there was the dry cleaner across the street and other places. And inevitably, I'd go into one of those places, hey, Scott, how you doing? And we'd get talking, and they go, hey, do you know Bill? Bill lives in that building. And it was these businesses and the business owners on the street became this critical social connector in the area. And that doesn't happen as often in suburban areas where you have chain stores. So there was some formula there of small business, independently owned by a local operator, and you know, and some of those retailers are just, they're just the most fantastic people, and they're really social. So that's why I'm here tonight, Peter, because I'm hoping to hear more about how we can encourage more of those experiences. I'm the lead on a council initiative and it's called Urban Isolation Mental Health. So we know that we have an epidemic of depression, anxiety disorders, and addictions in modern cities. And we also have a epidemic, probably related, of social isolation in modern cities. So we don't have all the answers yet. Maybe we'll get a couple tonight. I want to thank you all for coming out. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Scott. And I think that's a passion that I think you and I and many of the staff of the city share about creating community through a number of means and ways. And certainly when it happens in downtown, we're really kind of lifted up by that. We put a lot of work into the downtown, and I think small businesses taking a place on our streets, etc., providing that opportunity for connection, and then also providing really connection also for the residents that we're also looking to attract. So good comments. So now we're at the point where I'd like to introduce Paul Rost, who is my fellow colleague and branch manager of the Economic and Environmental Sustainability Branch, and he's going to be our host for the rest of the evening. Paul, thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Welcome, everybody. We're looking forward to our presentation tonight and hopefully a really robust dialogue. And thanks to Councillor Scott McKeen for staying with us for a little bit. That's great. Great champion of small business and a lot of the things that we're doing as a city. You know, our event is really going to focus on this presentation coming up, and I think you're going to enjoy the speaker and engage in a pretty lively dialogue. I have a couple of commercial breaks to provide. Tonight's hashtag is YEG Small Biz. If you are active on Twitter, you can tie into that. We're being taped tonight, so that'll be on YouTube. And if you don't want to show up and film, and by the way, Jeff Chase is our director at the back. He knows I don't like to get on film or get photographs taken or anything like that. I think tonight's not an option, so it is what it is. I'd just like to say, you know, there's some really interesting things going on in Edmonton from a small business perspective, and certainly going to touch on a few of those things tonight. And as Councillor McKeen opened up in terms of his experience in the downtown, we are also looking at small business connections across the city, which is making the city a really interesting story, I think, these days, and where we're integrating our work. So Peter and I as colleagues and many of his team that we work together on these things is that we want to integrate our work. So there's some great city planning going on, but the implementation side of the small business equation is really important to keep the city alive and vibrant. And we're working that right into neighborhoods in the city right now in terms of programs and facilitating initiatives and working with small business in small pocket neighborhood, old commercial strips that we're trying to reconvert and get business owners to think about becoming part of the fabric of that neighborhood. So it goes beyond downtown, it goes to all our main streets, and We know that it's a really critical part of the economy for Edmonton and how we grow as a city. I think you already know this, 95% of the businesses in Edmonton are small business. They make up a significant part of the local economy, and they bring the vibrancy and vitality to the city. We know that, and they're the engine, there's no question, and it's important for us to recognize that as a city, help facilitate that, and grow it. When you think of the destination part of a city, you think of those urban areas, which are really important, and business makes up that vibrancy to bring you and attract you into both serving the residents and the visitors. So one of the things I'd like to acknowledge today is we have 13 business improvement areas. We call them BIAs, and they serve the collective interests of those businesses on main streets throughout the city. And you can pick a number of them, and I think you all know them well. You know, the downtown is a BIA, 124th Street is a BIA, White Avenue is, Alberta Avenue, and the list goes on. And they're really critical pieces to connecting this city together. So I would like to acknowledge, if they're here today, is there any of our EDs or representatives from our BIAs here today? No? Okay, that's fine. They're busy people too, so they've got lots to do. But we want to recognize certainly their activity. So to move along, to get into the core of the program, it certainly gives me my pleasure today to introduce our guest speaker, Mr. John Young. In marketing and business circles, John is known for his intuitive sense of consumers, what makes them click. He's got a creative lateral thinker. He will share what he's learned over the past 40 plus years from marketing, business, consumer behavior, and hopefully there will be an application to the great work that all the people in this room and others are doing in the city. He'll challenge you to rethink about your customer expectations and what makes a remarkable customer experience. That keeps business and small business alive every day in terms of how that works out. The experience movement calls into question traditional marketing and service and shines on a light on what people really want. So with that said, I think we'll just jump right into it. John, we're going to turn it over to you. Look forward to the presentation, and please welcome John Young.
Thanks. So, how many of you have a place that you like to go? Just hang out. Yeah? You know, when you want to unplug or you want to unwind, just want to hang out, have a good time. What is it about the place that you like that makes you want to go there? It's always there and it's always open when you want. Yeah, well, that's good enough. Anybody else? Come on, you must have a favorite place you like to go. Yeah. Feel welcome. Oh, see, that's a good feeling, is to feel welcome, like neighborly, welcoming, right? Yeah. Anybody else? Well, I have places that I like to go, and because I travel a lot, I have in different cities across Canada and even down into the U.S., when I travel, I go to these places because I know there's certain neighborhoods or pockets that I go back to, and they're going to be similar. They're going to feel warm and welcoming and neighborly. So tonight we're going to talk about making the customer connection. Everything we discuss tonight, everything I bring onto the fore, will be connected to making the human connection, because it's really all about people. Scott said, it's all about people. People make neighborhoods. Now, when I started out, I taught marketing for a community college in Niagara, that's in Southern Ontario. And of course, we all taught the 4 Ps: product, price, promotion, place, people. This was the cornerstone of marketing. Anybody who's taken a marketing course, I'm sure you all have somewhere along the way. And I got thinking about it one day. It was in June. It was a beautiful sunny day, sitting in the backyard. And I was thinking about, you know, this marketing stuff and what I've been talking about. And it occurred to me that it's it's really not about the 5 Ps. And it was like an epiphany. It came to me. It was like, it's the experience, stupid. That's what it's really all about. It's the experience people have with people and neighborhoods and retail stores and services and restaurants. It's the experience that really counts. That's what makes us come back. That's what makes us want to go to these special places, is the experience that we have there, right? So the one thing I want you to take away tonight is the power of connecting with people in such a way that they want to become advocates and evangelists on your behalf. Prosumers, if you like. Customer owners. And what I mean by customer owners, I have a favorite grocery store that I like to go, and they just do things great. I love them. Like going there is like stepping out of my world into a new world. And who says that about their grocery store? All right. But here's what I mean about being a customer owner. I love this place so much. If I find a bad piece of fruit in the produce department, I'll take it over to the guy I'll say, you know, you better put this away because you don't want anybody else to see this. Oh yeah, thanks, like that, right? I believe in so much of that I become a customer owner. That's how much I love this place, the experience they give me. Okay. So, how many of you have paid $15 for a cup of coffee? Just show me your hands. There's 1, 2, okay, 3, $15 for a cup of coffee. Okay, most of you would probably think, that's a little more than I really want to spend, right? Okay, so, but if by chance you were having that cup of coffee at the Florian Cafe that was built in 1720 in St. Mark's Square in Venice, right? And on the patio, while you were sipping your coffee, there was an orchestra playing Vivaldi and classical tunes and so forth. Now it's worth $15 because it's the experience that really counts, isn't it? It's not the cup of coffee you're paying for, it's the experience of being there. Right? Yeah. So, a lot of people say to me, well, how do we know what as entrepreneurs, as shop owners, as planners and so forth, how do we know what people really value? What do they really want? Well, as marketers, we've come up with an equation, you know, it's how customers perceive value. And most of us think, well, you know, we're nice people, you know, we're pleasant, we're helpful, you know, occasionally we give away a perk, you know, a little extra something or other, you know. But you see, interactions are very subjective. They're very subjective. Let me show you what I mean. I travel a lot across this country, and sometimes I get to fly on this airplane. Sometimes it actually has a jet engine and not turboprop. And I find it fine. Typically it's an Airbus, or it's a, you know, 737, occasionally 777, and they're, you know, and for those who have never traveled on a 777, if you get up and go to the washroom, you might get lost finding your seat coming back. It's that big. However, I don't mind traveling on this Air Canada Jazz plane. For the most part, it's very comfortable. Of course, it's not as big, not as roomy, but for me, you know, 5'11 and a half, 180 on a good day, not bad. It's okay. I can fit under there.
But for Shaquille O'Neal, who's 7'2" and 325 pounds, that's a different deal. His perception of that ride on that airplane is going to be totally different than mine. And then, of course, if we throw in Howie Mandel, who is, you know, a germaphobe, and he's got his mask and his gloves on, it's like, don't touch me, we're getting too close kind of stuff, you know. So the perception of value is different from consumer to consumer. And the actual guest will determine whether you give value or you don't. Okay, it's not whether we think it is or it isn't. Now, part of this comes down to inside and outside thinking. Inside thinking is what most companies and organizations do. They come up with a strategy or a plan, and this is what we're going to do, and this is what we're going to give them, and they'll be really happy But in fact, what we want to have, what we need to have is outside-in thinking. We need to find out what they want, what will make them happy, as opposed to what we think will make them happy, right? I put this up here, this one here, because, and I'm picking on the airlines a little bit. Is that okay? Is nobody in here that works for the airlines? No? Okay. All right. Okay. Because, you know, they kind of think if they give us that Pan-American smile and give us some pretzels, that, you know, it will endear us to them, or them to us. And in reality, what we really want from them is shorter lineups, right? And less hassles. Sacrifices that we have to make. I mean, by the time you get to the gate and they're smiling and greeting you and telling you to get in line 1, get in line 2, all right, section 3 now, oh, you can't get in line, right? By the time we get there, we've made all kinds of sacrifices. Just having to get up and drive to the airport and park the car, schlep the bags in, go through security, right? Find the gate and balance everything while we've got that cup of coffee and we're dragging our bags behind us. Those are a lot of sacrifices that we make before we ever get to take or have a sample of their services. What they fail to realize is the number of sacrifices we make to do business with them. And then they charge us $25 to check a bag now. And they're talking about charging us to check bags that we carry on the airplane now. I won't pick on WestJet. But Southwest, which is an airline that operates out of Texas, bags fly free. And they make a point of letting you know that. See that? This is their little carriage that takes stuff over to the jet. I carry free bags. So here's the deal, right? Bags are free. And that's the kind of stuff that we want, right? We've already made some sacrifices. We don't need anything more like that. So, if remarkable experiences equate to value, then how do the customers determine value? See, value is the basis for all consumption, right? And it just happens to be in the eyes of the beholder. It's determined by a number of factors. And we've in marketing broken it down and said, okay, well, we've got our value quadrants. Okay? First quadrant is intellect. And now, and I'll explain to you what they each mean when we get to just a little further here. But one of the first quadrants of how we determine value is intellect. The next is using the 5 senses. You know, sight, smell, taste, touch, hearing, that sort of thing. And then emotion enters into the whole thing. And finally, spirituality. So these are the 4 quadrants that really add up to what we determine as value. What we determine as value. So let me show you this, how this works. If we were to look at the logic or the intellect side, we're talking about things that are learning, knowledge, mastery, consistency, satisfaction. Those are things that appeal to our logic, our intellect. When I talk about emotion, well, it's anger, delight, annoyance, pleasure. All these things come into play. Spiritual, anything that touches our core being or our soul speaks to us, you know? Those things that make us want to come back and do it over and over again are things that mean something to us. And then, of course, the 5 senses, which are the sensory or the physical aspect of it. So let me show you this. And maybe you can guess which one of these quadrants some of these examples fall into. This is Kim Gann. And Kim, I was doing a radio show in Toronto called The Entrepreneur Hour. And my co-host and I would bring in entrepreneurs and we would talk to them and say, how did you do this, or how do you do that, or why is this important, where did you get the idea from, and so forth. And Kim Gann was one of our guests. Kim was the marketing manager for Betty Crocker for General Foods. And she worked in Chicago and wanted to come back to Toronto where her home was. And she had an idea that she wanted to start a business. She started what we call sweet flour cookies. Now, anybody who's been to Toronto know where Bloor West Village is? Yeah? You know sweet flour cookies? No? No? Okay, but you know where Bloor West is. She's in Bloor West Village, which is not unlike 104th Street. Very similar. And in the summertime, there's the outdoor markets and things on the sidewalk, and there's bakeries and this and that all the way along the way, restaurants and you name it. It's really a carnival type of atmosphere. Those kinds of things that we want to come back and experience again and again. Kim came up with this idea, not so much unlike that Cold Stone ice cream concept, you know, where you can come in and you get to start with the vanilla or the chocolate and then you add things in until you get it the way you like it. Only she decided to do it with cookies. What a novel idea. So she has different cookie doughs. You know, she has the oatmeal cookie dough, she has the chocolate chip cookie dough, and so on and so forth. And you come in and you say, and here's what she did. This is genius, pure genius. She had a vent and pumped the smell of cookies baking out onto the street, right? Now, when you walk down the street and you smell, it's like cookies. I smell cookies, right? So you come in and you pick the cookie dough, and she's got this salad bar effect of all these different things that you can mix in and so on. And for me, it would be like, oh, I like those big dark chocolate chunks and put some pecans in there. Can you mix that up? And then she mixes it all up in a bowl, and she has a convection type oven that bakes the cookie in about 3 minutes. I know. Hard to believe. And then she has this little marble cooling slab next to it that she puts it on when she takes it out of the oven. And under 5 minutes, you walk out of her store, or you can sit down at one of the tables, and you've got a cookie about the size of a hamburger patty and about that thick that you helped make. See? And this is a key to it. Because it isn't the end product necessarily that is all important. Sometimes it's the process of being involved in it all, being a prosumer, being part of the act of doing it. Kim Gann, the co-creation is the process, and it's not necessarily the end product that's all important, although really awesome cookies, and you know, it's pretty hard to pass up the smell of cookies baking, right? It's pretty hard. She also offered, you know, boxes of cookies for, you know, corporate events and so forth, and she has now since gone on to trying to franchise this out and open different stores, right? The concept caught on. So where would this one fall in those quadrants, do you think? The 5 senses, right? Yeah, of course. Right? That's what draws us in, but then it's that process of helping to make it that makes it even more special to us, right? Okay, this is spirituality, I would say, and here's what it was. I was out walking in the Zoar Valley State Park in New York State in early October. My girlfriend and I were out there, and we were the only ones around. It was one of those days that, because it was kind of drizzly, it wasn't pouring rain or anything, but it was just kind of drizzly. But once we got under the canopy of the forest, it was fine. It was just perfect. And the thing that we noticed, of both of us, was no sound. No cell phones, no cars, no people chatting, no nothing. It's just the sound of our footsteps going through the bush. And we both looked at each other and went, this is a moment. This is one of those moments, right? And just as we were stopping to look around, out of a glade, 7 deer came bounding through the bush, paid no attention to us whatsoever, and then just kept going and was like, you know, close your mouth. That's what I'm talking about, spirituality, those kinds of things, that when it touches your soul and who you're all about, right? This is, you've probably seen, perhaps this already takes place in the city of Edmonton. They have outdoor chess tournaments, chess in the square. They do it in a lot of places. And it's the idea of the community being on this outside again. And then Scott and I were talking about this earlier. How do we get people to go outside, particularly when in Canada, it doesn't matter where you are, you're still going to have some harshness for some months through the winter, right? But how do we get people to go outside and still do things? So this is chess in the park, and you can see look at the gathering of people that have come around. Now this, I would say, comes under that category of intellect. The mastery of something, or watching somebody who is a master at something. See, so that taps into that whole idea. And community, neighborhood, right? Outdoor things. And of course, this one, we would say probably is that emotional quadrant, right? Can you see over there? Sort of? Okay, I'm sorry. Emotions. I mean, this had to be a World Cup game or something, right? There's people who were viewing. You could see the surprise, the rage, the surprise, like people is. So it's those kinds of things that tap into us and help create value for something. Okay. So what makes a great place then? What makes a great place? We talk about placemaking a lot in our world these days, about making great places for people to go and people to hang out, and taking the streets back from, no longer being ruled by the automotive world and giving it back to people. All right, so what makes a great place? Well, we've come up with some ideas on that as well. And I can't take the credit for designing this, of course, or coming up with this concept. PBS actually is an organization out of New York, and this is part of their study. A great place has to have uses and activities, things to do. We want it to be comfortable, and it has to have a certain image about it to appeal to us. We need access and linkages, and of course the sociability aspect of it, right? The sociability of it. So if we were to take a look at this, activities, uses, and entertainment, whether it's tango in the park, going to the park and to tango, or to learn to tango or do something in the park, chess in the park. This is interacting with the Laughing Men on English Bay in Vancouver. I was just there a couple of weeks ago. Every time I go by, I can't help but stop and wander through. And then live music. These are all aspects that bring life to a community or a neighborhood. These are things that we crave, these kinds of things, okay? Comfort and image, well, we want a place that's safe. We want it to be clean. We'd like it to be green if that's at all possible. It needs to be walkable. It needs to be charming and attractive, and maybe a little bit historic or heritage in nature. And you have a lot of heritage in this city here. That building at the bottom is Prince of Wales Hotel from Niagara on the Lake. I'll give you a little more information on that as we go along. And then, of course, sociability. We want it to be a place where it's diverse and it's neighborly, as Scott said, and it's friendly and welcoming, and you get to meet people and you talk to people. This is the kind of street where you want to go and hang out, right? You just want to go hang out, grab your coffee, sit down, or ride your bike, or walk your dog, whatever it turns out to be. And then access and linkages, well, it needs to be walkable. We want to be able to walk places, right? A different range of transportation options to get us to and from. We want good signage so that we don't, and I have to commend the effort made I was walking up and down 104th Street, and the signage there with you are here, and this is where this is, and that's great. You guys are getting it right. And it needs to be well connected. Now, how do we do this? Well, there is a place game. Anybody heard about the place game? Place game is when you get a group of people together that want to improve a neighborhood or work on a neighborhood or work on just an alley or a parking lot or something like that. And you go out with a place game brochure. You break into small groups and you go around and you decide what it could be or how you rate it at this point in time and how it all fits in and what are your comments. Now, you don't have to be a planner or an academic to do this as part of being the fabric of the neighborhood. You just have to want to improve things. But the place game really makes it a lot easier. It's a how-to guide through the whole process. So let's look at 6 things that are what we call leisure time rewards that people want. Leisure time rewards. They want social interaction. We want to have social interaction. People attract people. If there's a group of people out there, you want to know what's going on. Yeah, you know the old trick, you stand there and look up, and eventually people come over and want to know what you're looking at. People attract people, prove it to yourself. Just try that. We want to go where there's something going on. Participation. Yoga in the park. I see this in cities all across North America, people doing yoga in the park or yoga in the square or Tai Chi or in the square. We like to get involved. You see, people naturally want to belong to groups because we're very tribal in nature. It's just the way we're designed. We're tribal in nature. We like to belong to groups. We also want to be in comfortable surroundings. We like that aspect of it. Howard Schultz came up with a concept called the third place. You all familiar with the third place? Yeah? Show me your hands if you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Okay. It's pretty straightforward. See, they didn't start out to the boys that initially started the Starbucks idea, they were all about roasting beans. And they just had this one little place in Seattle where they sold these beans in bags. And they don't sell cups of coffee, they just sell beans. That's all we're all about. And beans and coffee makers and grinders and stuff like that. You want a cup of coffee? Well, you'll have to go home and make it, but we'll give you all the stuff to do it. And then Howard Schultz comes along. Howard Schultz, who's going to be the next president of the United States, I think. Number 46. And he said, well, yeah, I love this concept and so forth, but initially what they came up with was that Starbucks wasn't so much about coffee initially for people, but it was about cushy chairs, right? Now, for how many decades do we sit at Tim Hortons on those hard seats that, were hygienic and they could clean? And then Starbucks comes along and gives us a nice cushy chair to sit in while we have our cup of coffee. And initially they tied in with Chapters, which is now Indigo, Chapters, and you could go and borrow a magazine and sit down in Starbucks, cushy chair time, and read a magazine. Remember that? It was a great idea. And then Chapters finally went, no, we can't do that. Can't do that anymore. So we really like our comfortable surroundings. The third place, as they've designed it, was that it's not work and it's not home. It's somewhere else that we like to go and hang out and be, where we feel comfortable and we can relax and enjoy the company of others and a cup of good coffee or a cup of tea if that's what you like. Okay? Another thing is that we were looking for new and unusual experiences. New and unusual experiences. We crave unusual experiences. And boomers, by the way, are a natural fit for this because we've already suffered from enoughism. We're looking for opportunities to learn and to do something, to be part of it. So these are all part and parcel of leisure time things that we crave for, okay? Setting this up. And then, of course, there's doing things that are worthwhile. And this is where you can get your conscientious citizens to join together and clean up things. This is an alley cleanup that they did and replanted it or cleaned up a parking lot. And this is all across Canada. I mean, one is in Quebec and one's in Toronto and different places. Citizens that are interested in making it a worthwhile place to be, right, and getting together. Now, here's some rules of thumb about creating places. The power of 10 plus. Anybody heard this theory before? 10 plus theory? Okay. Yes? Perfect. And the theory is that in a city or a region, to be vital, we want to have 10 plus major destinations to go to. Like I'm talking about like neighborhoods and places that we go, I think in the city that is across the river from me, I look across the river out my kitchen window and I'm looking at Buffalo, New York. And thank God there's a river in between us, right? But I go over to the city because it's convenient for me, and to drive to Toronto is an hour and a half, and to drive to Buffalo is 10 minutes, right? So, but they have Allentown, they have the Elmwood Village, they have different places that I like to go and hang out, right? And it's all through the city. East Aurora, where they have the oldest 5 and 10 cent store in who knows where. and historic places. So that I have all these little pockets of places that I personally, and I know that you all like to do it as well. So they're talking about 10 plus major destinations to make a region or a city, vital. And within those destinations, which should be about 10 places in each one of them, right? So that there's something to do. And each of these places should have probably 10 plus things to do, layered to sort of create some synergy for the neighborhood. Right? So it's the 10 plus thing, and it trickles down. And I'll show you on more of a parochial neighborhood here. This is a neighborhood that I showed you a little earlier. And the 10 plus things, like, number one, I can sit here and read my paper. I can do a little window shopping. I can just sit and relax. I can read someone else's book or learn about things that are going on in my community. Go inside and do a little shopping, take a break from a bike ride, pet a dog, a little conversation there, probably gossip, and then go for a walk. So these are just, when you start and think about it, it's not big things, right? It's things that we do on a regular basis. But these are the things that happen that we like, that we want to be around. So the idea of the concept is that places thrive when users have a range of reasons, like 10 reasons. So for instance, you want to have a place where they can sit. You want to have a playground where children can interact as well. You want to have animations or artwork and so forth that people can interact with. And they do. They like that. And you have the lightbox alley. I mean, what a great idea. I have not seen that done anywhere else. Music in the street. This is one of the big ones. I mean, if we hear music playing somewhere, we're drawn to it, right? We want to go see. Something's got to be going on. I can hear music playing somewhere. And the same thing held true when I stood at the top of 104th the other day, or the sign said 4th Street. I stood at the top at Jasper, and I looked down the street, because I was going to wander down anyways, and I saw all these lights at the bottom, and I thought, something's going on down there. I got to go see what's going on. And I walked all the way down. And then I discovered it's the Neon Sign Museum. What a clever approach. But you see, I didn't know that at the onset. I could just see lights and stuff going on. I thought, oh, there's something going on down there. I got to go check it out. Live music does the same sort of thing. Food. We want food too. Big, big, big now, everywhere. And I know that if you're running a restaurant and you've got all that overhead sort of thing, a food truck probably seems like it's encroaching on your business. But in city after city that I go to, food trucks are sort of becoming the norm, and people are quite used to it, Food, history, or some heritage ideas, that people want that. But more than anything, sociability. Sociability. Well, the big question is, how do we do this? How community makes it happen? All right, so listen, if you're in a smaller venue, and you're not, a city planner or some academic or, a major suit or something, how do you make things happen in your neighborhood? Where do you start? What can you do? Well, you know what? You can activate your front yards. Move things outside. People are always interested in that. And it doesn't have to be spectacular stuff. It just needs to be, activate your front yard. Start dialogues. And this is important. And Scott touched on this when he said he talks to people. When he walks up and down the street, he takes him 20 minutes instead of 5 minutes, because you start to talk to people. And that's what it is. It's all about dialogue. What could we do? We should be doing this. We should be doing that, right? And I've, in my career, have had the same sort of approach. Talking to people and saying, well, if we only had this, if we had to do that, if we could do this, and so forth. And that's the beginning of it all. And then, of course, you want to organize it and hold neighborhood planning meetings. So, and when you start to do that, that's when this place game stuff comes into play, and you get ordinary citizens and people that live there or work there or have a business there to go out and find out things that they can do to make it better, to make it work. And fostering art is a big one. Now, this from the Allentown Art Show in Buffalo. Okay. So once a year, second or third weekend in June, they have an art festival, right? Pretty successful looking art festival, isn't it? Okay, well, this is how it started. And I was something like 13 or 14 years old, and I remember going with my mother, who was an artist, who was a painter, right? And this is how it started. On a couple of blocks in a certain neighborhood in downtown Buffalo. You know, nothing fancy, but take a look at this. Women with high heels and skirts on, they dressed to the nines, they were out there, you know. They loved it. And that's what it became. It took years to do it, but that's what happens, you know. It started with an idea. Somebody said, why don't we have an art show? And then it became the Allentown Art Show, Art Festival. 57 years they've been doing it now. Okay? Okay, so remake vacant lots. And I see some of that out here already in the city. I see people doing that. I see taking the parking lots, and I don't mean to say that having the business of a parking lot is a bad idea. It's an amazing idea for making money. But taking some of these spaces back and giving it to the people, giving people the place, right? Or just throw a party. I'm sure if you talk to the right people downtown, they'll give you a license to throw a party on the street. Or maybe not, huh, Barb? Just throw a party. It doesn't have to be a big thing, but an event, right? Just something, okay? So there are places that get it. There are places that get all this. And they're very successful at it. I'm going to show you one that also happens to be in my neighborhood, which is beautiful Niagara on the Lake. Anybody here been to Niagara on the Lake in wine country? I know, isn't it something else? You got to love it there, right? And I don't have any vested interest in that community, except that when I first started going there, it looked like this. Now, you notice a 1920s automobile, not quite that far back, but when I was a young man, I had a girlfriend that lived in Niagara on the Lake. And so I used to go down there, and we'd go downtown. This was downtown. They had a drugstore. They had a greasy spoon where we could get burgers and fries. And they had a small grocery store. And that was it, pretty much. The rest of these storefronts were vacant or, you know, they weren't doing anything. This was City Hall, or the courthouse, they called it, the courthouse. And at a certain point, they started to do, somebody's idea was to have George Bernard Shaw's plays, and they would do them in the courthouse. So the third floor of this courthouse, in the summertime, was transformed into the Shaw Theater, so to speak. There wasn't a lot of transformation because it was just a big room like this, and the seating was bleachers. And the actors would come out with very few or no props, just in costume, and they do George Bernard Shaw plays. Now, if you know any of the Shaw plays, they're mostly dialogue and so forth, so you don't really need a lot of props. Well, as time went on, it became a little more popular. The town also has a lot of history. They have a fort there called Fort George, where the Canadians fought to keep the Americans out, War of 1812-14. The first Parliament building in Upper Canada is there, Upper Canada House. So there's a good deal of history in the community as well, right? So they got a couple of things going for them. They also, as time went on, encouraged the green space idea. They have a beautiful park in the center of town with a little wading pool for kids and picnic tables and places where people can go and just have sit outside with their children or whatever, relax. It has also, it's on Lake Ontario as the Niagara River empties into Lake Ontario, so it's water surrounded on three sides. Pretty spectacular, and as I said, over the years it has grown and grown and grown. Retail has come in, some people that had vision about what it could be, and they had a lot of the natural things that were already there in the community, and they worked at it. And it's an amazing place now. They also have DeNiro and I know Edmonton does it as well. You know, they have a dinner in the main street, beautiful time. And they've got now 3 theaters in the community. The Shaw presentations at the Royal George Theatre, and they've got this beautiful Shaw Theatre that has been built in the last, I would say, 30 years, world-class theatre, and they still stage plays in the courthouse. So it's a theater community, it's a retail community, there's dining, there is all the old country inns that were falling in disrepair have been reopened and refurbished. The Prince of Wales, I think it's on this one, the Prince of Wales Hotel, which was basically where the farmers used to come and sit and drink beer in the afternoon. You know, they just sat around there. It was not a big deal. Niagara on the Lake, like that. Huh? And now it's turned into this spectacular place. Granville Island also gets it. They get it. They get what's going on. They have, of course, street entertainment, outdoor dining. They've got places for the kids to have fun and do something in their arcades. They've got fresh seafood market, the fresh produce markets. It's kind of that real atmosphere. They have transportation. You can drive there. You can walk there. You can take SkyTrain and get off and go to Granville Island, or you can take a water taxi there from say English Bay or somewhere. They just get on the water taxi and go. So they've really capitalized on all the things that they have as well. And of course, they have Gastown, which is also a tourist attraction, but I really would rather go to Granville Island. You know, it's just got more of those things that I'm interested in. So the Toronto Distillery District, now, Toronto Distillery District looked like that, right? Fallen in disrepair, and then there was some of the older buildings that were left, but this was basically what it looked like 25 years ago. And this is what it looks like now. They've reclaimed that district. They've refurbished things. They've moved in art galleries, and they've moved in food, and they have, and someone was talking to me about the German Christmas markets today, and this is what they're doing as well. They have the same sort of idea there. Okay? And they, whoops. Oh, there we go. Again, yoga in the distillery section, right? So it's quite a transition, but so they get it, and they're working on it. And you know, in the summertime, they've got outdoor dining, and they've got the flowers. Again, the green stuff as much as you can to break up all that brick and concrete. Right? And at Christmas time, of course, they celebrate it and bring people in from all over. People travel there from all over to go there. Detroit also gets it. Detroit was falling into just a terrible state because of the loss of the steel industry in the Great Lakes. There was the city of Buffalo, the city of Cleveland, and the city of Detroit, and their economies were based on steel and manufacturing steel products and automobiles. And all that disappeared when China started making cheap steel, and Japan started making cars that were better than North American cars at the time. And so poor old Detroit fell into a terrible state. Neighborhoods became emptied. Buildings were run down. But they decided, and they had a group not unlike yourselves that were determined to do something with the downtown area, try to revitalize their city and bring it back. Buffalo, New York has done the same sort of thing, as has Cleveland. Of course, Cleveland has the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame that helps draw people there, you know, so there's those things that pull people in. But Detroit had a real problem, and they wanted to try and revitalize the downtown, so they, oops, I want to go back here. They built this square here. I think it's called Cassius Market Square, and their intent was to try and bring businesses downtown, and they were dealing with a computer software organization called CompuWare, and CompuWare had 4,000 employees. And so the city of Detroit was trying to encourage them to come downtown. I mean, you can imagine if you could bring 4,000 people to downtown on a regular daily basis, how that would feed the surrounding, you know, like restaurants and retail and all those types of things. And so that's what they decided they had to do. So CompuServe did move down there, and the city of Detroit with their regrowth of the downtown area, saw an influx of $700 million to help revitalize the area. And they built this spectacular park because CompuWare said, we don't want just a building, we want a place where our employees can do things, where they can go to and sit down, or they can wander around, or they can do shopping and so forth. And so you can imagine now, when you bring 4,000 people in, the opportunities that are there then to feed them and clothe them and give them all kinds of things, right? So Detroit really got it, and they're working hard to revitalize. In the wintertime, of course, the center section here, they have a skating rink just like this out here. In the summertime, you know what they do with the skating rink? They turn it into a beach. They put tables and chairs with umbrellas and patio lanterns out there, and people gather on the beach in downtown Detroit. And in the daytime, people go there to sunbathe. If you can imagine, going down to, where are you going? I'm going downtown to sunbathe. I want to get a little sun, catch some rays. So, how do we find out about these customers? How do we find out about the people that we want to do business with? Well, one way to do it is to map it. We have some tools that are available to us to work through these things. And so we can come up with what's known as a customer journey or a customer experience map, right? It's a process of better understanding the customer's generalized expectations of what we have to offer and how to make for better customer experiences, right? So we come up with a map. So who is your customer sort of thing? Who are they? This is a report, and anything that I have here tonight, we're going to make available to you if you're interested, okay? If you're interested. This is a report that was put out by Forrester. This is a research organization some of you are familiar with. And Forrester came up with this Mapping the Customer Journey white paper on the 4 approaches to customer journey mapping, how and when to use them. And it really sort of details how you do it. We don't have time tonight to go through the whole process, but if you're interested in it, we'll be making this available to you, okay? So customer journey map or experience mapping, a better understanding of your customers, a great way to do it. So there's the report, and we'll make sure we get it to you. Another thing is understanding demographics. And a lot of people say, well, what about the boomers? How do we attract more boomers? Well, I think there's some misunderstandings about boomers. Because you see, and I can tell you this as a boomer, we have suffered from enoughism. We have enough stuff. We don't need any more stuff, right? We're trying to get rid of it. And I call my kids and go, you know, why don't you come over and see, take this stuff, and, you know, oh, I don't want to do that, you know. And I said, well, wait, you have to clean this place out. You'll be sorry then. See, we already have more stuff than we need. We have basements full and garages full of stuff, and we sell them at garage sales. Because the kids don't want it, and we don't want it anymore either. Why did I have that? Yeah, you know, and you ever go through your basement stuff, and you go, what was I thinking? All right, so this is what I did. I got the right thing yet? Okay. Oh, come on, where are you? Oh, he disappeared. He just took off. Anyway, okay. Essentially what happened is, I had a picture here, and it just went, it's gone. I had a garage sale this summer. I sold all that stuff in the garage sale. I took the money, and when I went to Vancouver a couple of weeks ago, I took the float plane over to the island. That was my experience. I sold all my stuff and made some money so that I could have an experience. And of course, when I was why are my pictures disappearing? Where are they going? Oh, well, doesn't matter. When I was in Dominican Republic for a vacation a couple of years back, I decided to go ziplining because I wanted to see what it felt like to be a bird and fly across the top of the tree. See, the boomers, we have bucket lists. We have things we got to do because we all realize that there's less road in front than there is behind. So when you think in terms of, well, how do I attract the boomers to spend the money? It's not the boomers that are spending the money anymore. They want experiences. If you can create an experience for them, then they'll be interested. This is who you're interested in. These are the folks that you want to get in touch with. They just surpassed the boomers as the largest demographic group in North America, the Millennials. Now, the millennials are an interesting group. A very interesting group, right? 69% of them say that they would be willing to pay more for goods and services offered by a local small business. Okay? 75% said they would support a local small business through social media. How do we get the message out without having to spend oodles of money on advertising and so forth? Well, these guys, these folks, are on Instagram, Facebook, and all the social media opportunities that are there. And what happens with Instagram, for instance, there's no great dialogue or anything. It's a picture, right? A picture says 1,000 words is what I'm doing. So if I'm having coffee at one of my favorite places on 104, or if I'm down at the Rogers Center, or if I'm walking around or doing whatever, and I get a picture and I put it on Instagram, how many people have possibly could see it, right? So these guys are more than willing to share their experiences or what they like on social media. They support local businesses. And so they're we used to talk about word of mouth advertising. This is word of mouse advertising, right? 65% said they engage with small businesses through social media. That's 20% more than boomers do, right? 35% prefer to spend their money with a small business instead of a big box store or chain store. And 60% see social media essential tool to stay in competition. This is the largest demographic group. They have more money to spend than anybody else, and it's because not most of them, but a number of them still live at home because the average age of moving out now is 34. They don't have a mortgage because they live with mom and dad. Am I right? Sort of, yeah. They may have student loans, but they still spend the money. They still spend the money. So millennials are the ones that you want to be chasing if you can, right? The Gen Xers, sorry about your luck. Okay. The other thing, too, is that the millennials are all about value when it comes to spending their money. So the values that resonate with them will make them spend their money. They're all about value. Okay? So I want to give to you right now 5 actions that you should seriously consider taking. First one is to engage more of the customers' or consumers' senses. Now, I put up there Abercrombie & Fitch because they do a job at it. If you've ever walked by one of their stores, you can smell the fragrances that they sell wafting out into the mall, right? And it sort of pulls you in. And then there's some young person, it's probably a model that they've hired to be a greeter, not like the guys at Walmart, right? Some young person that's dressed in, the skinny jeans and all that sort of stuff, waiting there to greet you when you come in the door. And as you walk by and you go, yeah, I could look like that if I had those clothes. Right? We do that, right? And then you walk in and they've got the right lighting, and they section the clothes off into little cubicles and corners and nooks and crannies in the store. The music is pounding. They have a counter at the back that's not unlike a bar where you pay for your items. So what has Abercrombie done? Tapping into the senses. They created a club atmosphere in their store. Club atmosphere, right? They get you. And then, of course, they have posters of people that look like this all over the place, in the windows, inside, everything. And again, we go, man, I could look like that. I bet I could look like that. No. Okay. Create uniqueness. Everybody know what this is? Anybody? It's an Apple store. Doesn't look like a store. They do it again, though. If you were expecting it to look like Best Buy, where you go to get your computer stuff, forget it. That's not how they operate. And you've got those guys, the blue shirts, guys and gals called the blue shirts, And they're all outside, they got greeters themselves, and they're all like, come on in, play with all our toys. Have a good time, spend as much time as you like, try all this stuff out. And we're pretty happy to do that, right? What Apple has done is changed the script. They've taken, when we walk into a store, we have a particular set of expectations that we're used to. And they flip it around and turn it on its head. We're not like that. There are no cashiers. There's no counters where you pay for things. Everything's done on an iPad, right? Would you like me to email your receipt to you? And they just have to swipe to their card on their little card reader on their iMac, and you're good to go. They've turned it upside down. They've turned it upside down. The other thing is this: we want to personalize every transaction or interaction that you have, okay? Personalize it. Always find something that you can do, whether it's packaging or somehow personalized customization for somebody when you're doing business. There's always some way to say, this was just all about you. Now, I had occasion, as I said, I was in Vancouver a couple of weeks ago. I had occasion to go into the Nordstrom store, which is absolutely amazing. It's in Nordstrom shares the building with Microsoft, right down in the heart of the community of downtown. But I was curious, because this is my thing, right? I wanted to see what they do, how they do it, and somebody was raving about it. So I went into Nordstrom's, and I went up to, I think, the second or third floor menswear department, and Jason came over and, oh, can I help you with anything? Or if I can help you, just let me know. And I said, well, in fact, I was looking for a certain size and color, and I'm not quite sure which ones. Oh, he says, let me help you with that. So he goes through, and he's telling me all about the product and everything else, and I'm like, okay. And he said, well, did you want one? I said, well, give me a couple of those. And I said, okay. And so he takes them over to the counter, and he wraps them in tissue paper and puts a seal on it, right? The Nordstrom seal, and then puts it in their classy little shopping bag there. Now, this is what we call personalizing, making it special for you somehow, making it special. You know what the purchase was? Underwear. I bought 2 pairs of underwear. Now, why does someone make it a personalized, wrap it in tissue with a seal and put it in this and all that? It's underwear, right? They get it. Okay. Surprise people. It's another big one. Surprise people. Everybody familiar with Zappos? Show me your hands if you know about Zappos. Yeah, okay. Because you buy shoes, right? All right, Zappos is an online shoe store started by Tony Heisch. It was recently, I think within the last 3 years, sold. Steve Bezos bought it and added to the Amazon empire. Within 5 years, Tony's little company, Zappos, was making over $1 billion gross revenues every year. How'd they do it? Well, they had great customer service for one thing. But it was all online. How many people buy shoes online? 1, 2, 3, right? Okay, well, that's fair enough. They have some interesting policies. If you order a pair of shoes online from them, in a certain color, they FedEx them to you, or no, they UPS them to you, overnight. So the next day you get your shoes. Now, if you try them on and they're not exactly the right fit, or the color isn't exactly to match your dress or whatever, you call them, they say, well, we'll send you out a half size larger, or we'll send you the color that you think it is. And they send it out the same day. You don't even have to send the other shoes back. They will immediately send out the new shoes. You have 365 days to return the other shoes, and they provide you with a mailing label and a box to send it back to them. I mean, that's the kind of treatment that people want. If you get a treatment like that, you're going to want to do business with the company. And they are loved by their customers. 3 summers ago, when you bought a pair of shoes from Zappos, they surprised you by throwing in a pair of flip-flops for free. So you open the box up, there's your shoes, and there's a pair of flip-flops for free. So you want to surprise people whenever you can. Make them feel special and surprise them. This is a little company called Sweetwater. I'm a musician, and so I play a lot of guitar, and I keep these kind of companies in business, buying parts and stuff like that. But Sweetwater, when I open the box, you see that there? They always enclose a little bag of candy, right? Tootsie Rolls and Tootsie Pops, and what have they got? Taffy in this one here. It's just a little surprise, a little thank you for doing business with what? And then it ties in with their name, Sweetwater, you know? So here's your sweeties. Okay? Sweetwater. And finally, repeatability. Repeatability. See, it's not good enough to deliver remarkable experiences 3 days a week, or when you have a full staff, or when a guest walks in and you have exactly what they want. That's not good enough. We have to deliver all the time, 24/7, 365. That's our jobs, right? And it's not about training either. Companies that are successful, businesses that are successful, you don't have to be big, is to rehearse your group, your team. Disney does this. Large companies do this. They rehearse. They don't train people. They rehearse them on how you're supposed to act when you deal with your customers. Rehearsals rather than training. It works. So you can imagine, of course, that this is Cirque du Soleil. Let's put it in perspective. Say you go to Cirque du Soleil on a Wednesday night and they say, yeah, I know, it wasn't that great tonight. We were kind of short-staffed. You know, it's a Tuesday, you know, and things weren't going real great today, you know. Come back on Saturday. We'll be much better. You think Cirque du Soleil would still be in business if they did it that way? 24/7, 365, and that's what we have to do. We have to be the same way. We can't wait for us to have full staff and everything to be hunky-dory. Now, how are we doing time-wise? We okay? Are you guys okay? Are we good? I just got a little bit more I want to share with you because someone asked me about this, and I thought it's pretty relevant at this stage of the game. And I want to talk to you just a little bit about some of the different things that are being done in marketing as it pertains to the social media and electronics and the whole thing. I want to talk to you about omnichannel. I want to talk to you about Beacon. I want to talk to you about proximity marketing. Half of consumers out there, they browse in stores before they buy things online because they want to see what it's like, right? 2/3 of consumers conduct online research before they go and buy in a bricks and mortar store. And you can't have a strong physical presence without a digital one as well. Walmart's a prime example. Walmart was always a walk-in brick and mortar store where you could go in and get what you want. Now they've got a major online presence. Major online presence. They're really trying to keep up and hang on as much as they can with Steve Bezos. Amazon or Amazon Prime. Incredible. But here's something that's interesting that I realized. When Steve Bezos bought Whole Foods recently, the Whole Foods grocery chain, sort of was an indicator that perhaps brick and mortar hasn't reached its end yet. People still want to go into the grocery store and pick out their own fruits and vegetables kind of thing. In most cases, that sort of thing. So let's talk about omnichannel. You all familiar with this concept, or you've heard it somewhere, omnichannel marketing? Omnichannel marketing means that you're connected in all your aspects. Companies are. For instance, I'll tell you a story. Walking around, I had my Blundstone boots on, and the soles started to come off of my boots, and I realized I had to get some new boots. 5 minutes, okay. So what I do, I go into one of the shoe stores where I was, and I said, you know, I need new boots. And they said, okay, well, we don't have that size in that color. Oh, and now I'm disappointed. But wait, we'll go online and see if we can get it on our online facility for you and have it shipped to the store. I went, oh, okay, now I'm uplifted a little bit, right? And then they come back and they said, well, we don't have it in that size. We have it in that color. We don't have it in that size online. But if you just give us a moment, we'll call a couple of the other stores within the 25-mile radius of here, and we'll see if we can find if they have a pair for you. That's omnichannel. That means they're exercising all the things that they have at their disposal to try and make sure that you walk out the door with a purchase, okay? This one is interesting as well. This is what's known as a beacon marketing. Everybody familiar with beacon marketing? How that works? Yeah? Yeah, it's very cool. And a beacon is a low-cost piece of hardware, and it's small enough that you could attach it to, a stand like this or a table or on a wall, and it's battery operated. It's friendly. It's a low-energy Bluetooth type connection. And what happens is it can send messages to your cell phone while you're in a store shopping to say, we have this, that, or the other, and this. And beacons are technology that detect nearby smartphones and send them media, a coupon or a special that's going on, such as or they can send ads, or they can send supplementary product information, that kind of thing. And they kind of look like this thing here. I don't have a photograph of it, and they send this little message to your smartphone, right? Macy's and Walgreens are using this to a great deal of success to enhance their customer experience. And the next one is what we call proximity marketing. And proximity marketing is being used with a similar type of sending messages to your smartphone, but you don't have to be in the store. It can be if you're in a mall or a big place like this, or you're in a special event and you're out there and you're within proximity of where they are, they can send you messages to tell you about a sale that may be going on, or a special that we're doing, or a special event that's happening at 2 o'clock at such and such a spot, right? So these are the tools of what we have to work with now. This is where things are going. And I want to talk to you, about brand a little bit before we close this off. Apple, of course, come in and play with our toys. They love it. And they've turned the world upside down. How many people in here have an Apple product of some description? Yeah, I know, the vast majority of you do. It's considered to be a luxury item. It's really not an expensive item to make, but they sell it for a fairly high cost, so we feel as though we have a luxury item in our product. Some people think of it as being it falls into that category of being sexy. I have my iPhone, or I have my iPad, or whatever it turns out to be. And it says something about who I am, right? That Apple. So the Apple experience is like no other. And here's some of the things they do. They use an acronym. A, approach people with a personalized, warm welcome. P, probe politely to understand all the customer needs. P, present a solution for the customers that they can take home today. L is for listen for and resolve any issues or concerns. And E is for end with a fond farewell. So this is how they operate. This is how they are rehearsed to do it. Harley Davidson, by just the name of it, sparks our emotion. Right? The whole thing. And Harley Davidson is not about bikes. Harley Davidson is about creating an opportunity for 60-year-old professionals to dress in leather and go out on the weekends and frighten people. Well, this guy's a chef, this guy's a gynecologist, and this guy's a photographer. But on the weekends, they ride their Harleys and they have a great time. It's a great place. The Harley is where the mystery lies, right? And of course, then we have our Starbucks. What makes it worth $2 or more? Well, because they've created a third place for us. A place where we can go and hang out, where it's friendly. And then there's Amazon. Amazon Prime. Who can compete with Amazon Prime? My goodness. They've just... Although I'll share this with you. I'm reading a book right now that is called The Four, and it's about Google, Amazon, Apple, and Facebook. And they are job killers. Even though we all embrace them because there they are, they're the culture of today, they're killing jobs. Just so you know. Not a great way to end it, huh? And then, of course, where best friends are made, Build-A-Bear, Build-A-Bear is a great idea, concept by Maxine Clark. She created this world where you go in and you buy a little bear skin over here, and then you stuff it and make your own bear, right? Huh? I went through the process just to see what it was all about, because I wanted to know what the experience was that everybody was talking about. For years, I walked by and never paid any attention. Then I went, I got to go in and see what they're doing, right? So I get in line. The person in front of me is this tall. The person behind me is that tall, right? And the counter girl's going, he doesn't have any kids with him. Watch that guy, right? So I go up and I take my little bear skin up. They have this circus wagon kind of thing that they blow the stuffing in with. But first you have to pick out a little velvet heart with the name that says friend or love or something like that. They put this in the bear first, and then they stuff the thing up and stuff it. And then they give it back to you now, and then they tell you this, you got to jump up and down now to get that heart going. I'm like, seriously? Yep, I'm jumping up and down, right? Then you go over and you clean it up, and you go over to the computer and you print off its birth certificate. Okay. Talk about an experience. Talk about being, pro-creator of the whole thing. Taking it down, and then I go to pay for it. But first you have to go through the accessory department. Now, the bear itself only costs $10, $1 of which they give to the World Wildlife Fund. But then you have to go through the accessory department where the outfits are like $25 and hats and sunglasses for the teddy bear, right? Go up to pay for it. And they print off the birth certificate with the bear's name on it and when it was born and all this stuff. And they give you a little gingerbread house cardboard box, right? Am I right, ladies? Yeah. And they put the little bear inside there to take it home with his birth certificate and so on and so forth. And I'm like, wow, this is really amazing. This woman has really thought this through. There's two little kids in front of me at the counter, and they got their bears together, and they go, can you marry our bears? I'm like, what world am I in? And I'm thinking, all right, they got him now. Yeah, they got him. And they said, yes, we have a marriage ceremony. They get a binder out, and they do a little marriage ceremony at the counter for two teddy bears, and the two girls walk out happy as clams. What an experience. I mean, they really get it. And not only are they getting it for those children at the moment, but do you not think that as those children grow up, they have children that are going to bring them back and have them go through the experience as well? Of course they are. So Maxine Clark came up with a way. She didn't invent the teddy bear. She invented a whole new way of approaching the teddy bear. Right? Yeah. We didn't invent the teddy bear. But they do, and then they have birthday parties. So remember this. People may forget what you said, and people may forget what you did. But they'll never forget how you made them feel. Right? Maya Angelou. And I didn't invent this whole idea of customer experience and so forth, but it was kind of born out of necessity based on my personal experiences. So start making things remarkable and delightful and surprising and important to people. It's my hope that tonight's session will inspire more conversations about this concept of creating remarkable experiences, whether it's in a neighborhood or whether it's in your retail outlet or your restaurant or the service that you provide. And I want to thank you all for coming tonight. And I want to thank Team Edmonton, because what a great opportunity it was for me to come here and address you. Thank you yourselves, and I'll say good night.
Thank you. Is mic on? Hello? Okay, it's not on, it doesn't matter. Thanks, John, very much. A lot of content in there. We have a few minutes to take some questions. I have a couple of roving mics, Adam over here and Braden at the back. So if you have a question for our guest speaker, please, we've got one right here. Adam?
Hi, my name is Miriam.
Hi, Miriam.
Thank you for showing great examples like the Distillery District and Niagara On The Lake. I visited, and I think they're both awesome communities. To that end, I think it's a significant investment for a small business to invest and actually plant roots in communities. So what do you think the role of the municipality or the province is in enabling like that to occur? Or is it solely driven by the local business owners themselves to choose a spot that's ground zero and just start grow and flourish? Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, there's a little of that. I mean, certainly there are grants out there for changing facades and doing so forth. There's programs that you want to look into, and I know that the people at the city are more than. I mean, today I was totally amazed at how they are so organized downtown here with things, and the information that would be available to you to find out about any provincial or municipal funding for certain things. But a lot of it does come down to grassroots. You know, starting with, you know, just things that you can do and getting a buzz going, you know, getting that happening. And I know it is. Niagara on the Lake, this did not happen overnight. This was 40 years in the making. A little of this, a little of that. Somebody that had the nerve to open a little shop on that main street and do sort of things. And it's turned over a lot of people over the years, but it just keeps growing and growing and growing. So you know, there are grants out there, there are funding to do certain things, but a lot of it's still going to come down to doing those small things that you can do to sort of make something happen, make something going on in your neighborhood. Yeah, there's a balance, yeah. I think that, you know, there are programs out there if you're looking for some money, but you know, they want to say, well, what are you putting in? What are you going to do, sort of thing, too. You know, it's not always just, well, here's some money, go do whatever you want with it, sort of thing. But there are programs out there. There are grant programs that you want to look into.
So if you are in the audience and you are contemplating that as an action item for a business, I'd encourage you to talk to some of the city team here, can guide you through some of the options that are available, at least that might be able to help you navigate those waters. So with that said, is there any other questions, comments somebody would like to make? Last call. Oh, here we go.
Thank you. I do retail consulting for local businesses, and one of the things that I have found challenging, and I'm so glad you mentioned 104th Street, is because there are businesses that start up on that street and then they don't do so well, or they fail, or they pull out. And it comes down to customer shaming, or it has in these instances. For instance, there was a retailer who was blaming, well, customers aren't coming to my store. People aren't buying my products. And so what do you suggest to retailers who are taking that approach as opposed to owning up and being accountable, going, we need some new ideas, we need new experiences?
Okay.
I know that look that you made is exactly what I do, so I'd love to hear your perspective as an expert.
So here's what I'll share with you, because you are a consultant in this industry. In my early days in advertising and marketing, I used to go door to door in main streets just like this one out here, and every week would be, you know, going in and talking to them, you know, and finding them and getting this, oh, you know, how's it today? Yeah, well, you know, it's this, it's that, and the lamenting, right? And here's what I did to try and pull those things up, and it worked. I went in with ideas. I would take them ideas that they could buy into and show them. And primarily it was advertising ideas at the time, because this is going back a ways, right? And I worked in the publishing industry, newspapers and so on and so forth. But I didn't try to sell them. I didn't try to sell them advertising. I would come in with ideas. And one of the greatest compliments ever paid to me years and years later was one of them I went in to say hello to, had been long out of the area. And he said, you know, I always looked forward to you coming in the door. He said, you never had to sell me anything because you always brought me ideas. And that's your role, I think. They're gonna be moaning and so forth. And once you get to know them well enough, you go, well, stop right there. I don't want to hear more of that. I'm going to show you something that you can do, and you can do right away. You've sort of got to, you know, cut them off and say, okay, we're enough with the pity party for the day. Here's an idea. What do you think about this? We could do this, or we could do this. And I tell you, I used to fill my briefcase with ideas that I would find from all kinds of marketing magazines or advertising magazines, and I just have them in there. And if they say, I say, well, what about this one? How about this, So our role is to give them ideas about how to make it work. And the reality is in our world is that they're not all going to succeed. And it could be the product, it could be their attitude, it could be their hours, it could be any number of things, how they present themselves, right? They're not all going to make it. But our job is to give them ideas about how they could do it. Here's some things that you could do. And there's plenty of resources. I mean, and it's so much easier now for you than it was in my day, because now you can Google everything, right? And punch in a small retail store that sells da-da-da-da-da-da, give me some ideas from around the world, and it'll all come up. And now you've got ideas at your fingertips that you can go in and share with them. You would not believe the amount of people on 104th Street that lay awake at night, can't sleep, going, I wish someone would come along and help me with some ideas. That's what they are. Because they don't know. They know about buying and opening and doing this and that. They don't know about ideas about how to get traffic in the door and so forth. That's your job. You're welcome.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Unless there's any closing question, I think we've come to a close of the program. I want to thank you, John, for all the content and the presentation tonight, and hopefully the group here has got some takeaways, and I'm sure we'll get some advantages out of your work and utilize it in the future. So to that end, I'd like to present you with just a small token of our appreciation from the City of Edmonton, a couple of publications on unique places in the city and city history. So
perfect.
Once again, thanks very much.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, for coming, and have a great rest of the evening.